I've studied disasters around the world for many years. And I looked at a strange kind of a disaster. And they all have a lot of similarities to the most original disaster of a high enterprise organization, the Titanic. Everybody heard the story of the Titanic. It was the biggest, best ship the human being has ever built. It was unsinkable. And on this day, led by Captain E.J. Smith, by all accounts, he was related to Mr. Drummond, or Mr. Drummond to him. Think of one of his grandchildren, if you ask me. He led this ship into this ocean. And it was delayed in Queenstown, in Ireland, for 1.5 hours before it took off, because another ship drifted into its path, and then it took off. And it then went on its merry way to New York. Now, way up there, came down an iceberg. Now, you've seen Titanic movie. Everybody's seen the movie. No one has ever told you the story of the iceberg. It had a story too, you know. It had a right to be there. It broke off Greenland 3,000 years ago. And it drifted down like what millions of icebergs would do. And they hit each other. They met in the middle of the ocean. Now, just think about this for a moment. And this is incredibly important. If that iceberg, if Titanic had not been delayed in Queenstown for 1.5 hours, it would have missed that iceberg with almost a mile. And you would never have heard of the Titanic. And no one in this room would have heard of a guy with the name of Leonardo DiCaprio. He would have been some 2-bit actor somewhere. Coincidence. Now, when you look at these kind of organizations, which are like the Titanic, and this is the words of the president of the White Line Shipping Company, we believe our ship is safe, it's unsinkable. There are organizations like that who sank. Anybody remember which company was behind Bhopal, India disaster? Union Carbide. Union Carbide was the most outstanding chemical company at the time. They were the DuPont of the time. Their safety performance was out there. And then they killed 3,000 people when a flange was missing that was supposed to be on one pipe on one of the thousands of pipelines they have. Piper Alpha, North Sea oil rig, killed 167 men, and 6 months before, they've just won a safety competition, rating them the best oil rig in the North Sea. The best. Texas refinery was benchmarked against by other refineries in Texas when it had that explosion. You read the Baker report, you'll see how it's standing. Their safety performance in terms of lag indicators. Deepwater Horizon, Gulf of Mexico, Transocean, the owner of the oil rig who worked for BP, was the leading contractor in the oil and gas industry. BP themselves was probably the world leader in safety in the oil and gas industry, along with Shell. North Parkes mine in Australia was a specific personal example for me. I was, in 1999, selected to be the judge of a very prestigious award in Australia. We were a team of people, 6 people in total, and we judged the applications of mining companies who want to be rated the best in the country that year. And they would be vying for the Minex Award, very prestigious. That year, I was on the panel, and we selected North Parkes to be the winner of this Minex Award. 4 months later, a disaster on that mine killed 4 people, and if it happened a half an hour earlier, 36 people would have been dead on the safest mine in Australia. You do not know, maybe, that the Westray coal mine in Canada in 1992, 1991, when they had a disaster, they were given the John T. Ryan Safety Award 11 days before the disaster. And then they rescinded the war. What is it that even DuPont had a disaster in November, 4 people killed? Something strange is happening in organizations that are having disasters that shouldn't have them, like the Concordia. That's what the Concordia and Titanic look like compared to each other. These organizations focus strongly on safety as a core value. They focused on technology, systems, audits, reinforcement. They were fixated on the compliance behavior of employees and to eliminate the at-risk behavior. And they targeted and achieved low accident rates, and they were getting nearer and nearer to zero. What kind of organization is that? It is a well-managed organization. Now, when you look at how these organizations bring their safety performance down, this is the Bradley curve. They do exactly what you do every single day. You analyze and prevent accidents. You engineer a safe work environment. You enforce safety rules, safe procedures, accountability for safety. We hear them all. Eliminate the at-risk behavior. Set safety targets, reward achievements. They do all of that. Just much better than most people. And they bump against a wall because strange things start to happen. It's well-managed organizations. And this is where Mr. Drummond was. He was an excellent, outstanding manager. Now, there are 7 of them, but I only have time for 5 today. What I call traps. Management traps in safety. The trap of compliance, protection, human error, numbers, and pretension. The trap of compliance. If you divide human behavior up, organizational behavior up, in acting safely, taking risks, complying to rules and breaking rules, you get 4 quadrants. In that quadrant there, think about road safety. Taking risks, breaking rules. You don't want people there speeding, drink driving. Speeding is horrible. Speeding kills people. And that's why we have speed limits of 30 miles an hour in towns, or 50, 60 kilometers an hour, because the human body can survive at that speed. The top left quadrant is where we want people to be. Comply to rules, act safely. That's where the whole safety profession goes for. Drive at the speed limit, crossing at pedestrian crossings. That's what we want people to do. The only problem is, in traffic engineering, this is called the 85th zone. 85% of accidents happen in the safe zone on the roads. Why? Because it's a natural statistic, partly because most driving happens under the speed limit. Most pedestrians cross at the crosswalks. So it's a natural statistic. I mean, if you really want to kill a pedestrian, where are you going to find those bastards? At the crosswalks. I have to apologize. In Australia, the word bastard is a term of endearment. We call everybody a bastard. There's not when your son comes home from school, you say, hey, you little bastard, have you done your homework? It's just normal. But there is an additional reason. It's an obvious reason. But it's almost as if we don't pay attention to this. We ignore this result. It's the reaction of humans inside the system of compliance. We all become like that. We all become pedestrians. The moment we step into a compliance situation, we stop paying attention. It's natural. There's nothing wrong with it. At Piper Alpha, they were killed in the accommodation block. 167 men. Why were they there? They fully complied with the emergency evacuation procedure to go there and wait for the helicopters. But a helicopter will never land on a burning rig. That's where they died. There were 10 people who jumped off the rig, who followed a young man who was a helicopter pilot qualified guy, who realized he's got to jump in the sea, a no-no in the North Sea. But that's the only way he thought, and they survived. Now, I'm not making a case for rule breaking. I'm making a case for the loss of focus inside the rule compliance. When rule compliance becomes a cult in the organization, this happens. A very famous astronaut, Bo Bobko, said the quickest way to get you killed on a manned space flight is to not follow standard operating procedure. The quickest way to get you killed. He said the second quickest way to get you killed is to always follow standard operating procedure. This thing about compliance to rules is a complex topic. And organizations that became disaster-prone fell into the trap of thinking they're safe when people are complying. It leads to the trap of protection, the perception of protection. In Sweden, in 1967, they decided to switch over from driving on the left to driving on the right. Now, how do you do this? It's a tricky business to do this in the whole country. So they set a target, 1st of September, 12 o'clock that night, you can't be on the roads because I change all the signs over. And the next morning, at 6 o'clock, you must come out on the wrong side of the road. Don't forget, come out on the wrong side of the road. 3 million Swedes, in Volvos probably, with big hats, I'm sure, came out and started driving on the wrong side of the road. What happened that morning? Carnage. That's what they thought. 9 o'clock that morning, not a single accident in Sweden reported. Safest day in their history. The accident rate dropped down to the lowest level ever and stayed low for 18 months. And then gradually increased again. Here's my solution for road safety. Every 18 months, we swap sides of the road. Keep people sharp, huh? Makes you think, doesn't it? Think differently. We've seen that. This is the play park of my grandson. What's wrong with this play park? Don't say there's no kids. Can you imagine a guy with no hair taking pictures of kids at a play park? No. I had to wait for the kids to go away so I can take a picture. It's too safe. There's nothing that can hurt my grandchild. No, I love my grandchild. There's nothing that can hurt him. Now, here's a fundamental thing about the safe organization, where through all this beautiful exercise and activity we have in safety, which we must do, we have created a worker that looks like that. We have lost the fear of danger in these organizations. And this is where we have to be very careful how we progress in safety. Because if we start to misunderstand the fundamentals of the risks in our business, we're starting to misunderstand the fundamentals of safety. And I'm always forever deeply concerned that organizations, industries like yours, who deeply understand the risks you're dealing with and is progressing extremely well, that you don't take with you on that journey this fundamental understandings. And that's why I'm saying I'm rather a consultant in risk. They also fall in the trap of the human error. This is the problem. We've got to eliminate human error. They make these mistakes. Humans are the fundamental problem of what we deal with. And we've even classified everything they do wrong. Fatigue, complacency, attitude. We've got it all covered. And since time immemorial, Heinrich in 1930 said, the human problem. And we all see this as the human problem. This is the kind of people we deal with, lapsing, forgetful, unreliant, inconsistent. And everything has got to be done to eliminate those problems. Well, I want to disprove that. Because we focus on this, we miss the real human error. If you can call it human error. I'm going to let you make a mistake now. I'm going to let you blow up a plant, and you're going to kill 11 people, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Nothing. And when you've done it, I'm going to ask you, is this accident preventable? And you're going to have to agree, yes, it is. You could have prevented it, but you cannot until afterwards. Chemical plant that manufactures 4 different chemicals. Chemical 2 is a corrosive one. So once a year, they pump all the chemicals out of tank 2 into 1, 3, and 4. They slow down the production of the whole process. The only problem is the mixture of 1 and 2 is potentially explosive. So all they had to do was prevent too much of 2 going into 1. I'm going to give you that task to do now. They had 8 crews sitting around a video monitor that shows the flow rates of these tanks. And if any one of the 8 sees too much of 2 going into 1, they divert 2 to 3 and 4. Very simple operation, 27 years, no mistake. 28th year, a quirky set of numbers and no one saw it exceeded. I'm going to give you a set of numbers and I'm going to ask you to add up these numbers. Very simple, like 2 plus 2. But you must do it loud, everybody together, so I can hear who blows them up. You cannot prevent this accident from happening. You're going to blow 11 people up right now. Focus now. Pay attention. Don't be complacent. You know all the nonsense we tell people. Do it now. Everybody together, take 1,000 plus 40. No. I'm going to, everybody, because I want to hear who blows them up. Take 1,000 plus 40. Plus 1,000. Plus 30. Plus 1,000. Plus 20. Plus 1,000. Plus 10. You cannot add up. It's as simple a problem as that. The answer is 4,100. These are mistakes that we have no understanding of. You made a mistake. You saw what you expected to see. This mistake killed 167 men on Piper Alpha. That night, when the Piper Alpha sent out a mayday, everyone else heard about there's a fire on Piper Alpha at 10 o'clock that night, and they lost radio contact, and they all kept on producing oil. And they fueled the small fire into a large fire, to the point where it exploded and 167 people killed. When the judge challenged the managers on the other rigs, why did you not stop production? They all said, we assume they're going to get the fire under control. Because these oil rigs are fitted with extremely advanced water deluge systems, pumps under the water. But what happened that day before, the manager of Piper Alpha sent scuba divers under the water to do repair work. Because he was worried that if a fire would start, they may be sucked up by the pumps. By the deluge system, he had the pumps switched on manual. And that night, someone forgot to put it back on automatic. And that next, they all saw what they expected to see. Like you just moments ago expected to see a spoon, and there was a fork. The mistakes that people make are inherent in us. These are cognitive mistakes. You cannot tell people not to make these mistakes. You could not do it moments ago. It's a whole different beast that we have very little understanding of. The trap of numbers. And this is where things get a little bit more touchy. Because if you look at safety, it's measured. It's got numbers, lagging indicators, accident rates, etc. And logically, there is no other goal that we can have in safety than zero. You cannot ever say, our goal is next year, let's have 5 fatal accidents, not 10. Let's have 3 serious accidents, not 7. You can't say that. The goal must be zero. It's a moral imperative. But inherent in that goal comes a huge, huge risk. And that risk is we create the illusion that safety will have a victory one day. One day we will reach zero. That's the illusion. Now here's the implication of it. We can change. The road fatalities in North America is over 30,000 a year. We can fix it up tomorrow. If we change the speed limit on all roads, everywhere, from 65 miles an hour or 100 kilometers an hour to 5 kilometers an hour, everywhere, we will reach the goal. But we will destroy North America economy. Be very careful how we charge people with goals, measurable goals. Because the closer you get to it, the more serious the problem becomes, like you've seen with those disastrous companies. There's another risk associated with it, the so-called safe mistake. Because here's the question: is zero safe? Organizational dynamics is just like that. Organizations have these events, things happening all the time. And we can't ever measure them. We can never say zero is safe. And that's the trap that those organizations fall into. The closer they got to zero, the more confident they became that they are safe. And they have longer and longer streaks with zero accidents, and then that leads to a very serious situation, which could have been overcome had we only listened to one of the most amazing mathematicians in the world, Albert Einstein, who said, not everything that counts can be counted. Sorry, not everything that can be counted counts. And not everything that counts can be counted. And that is so true of safety. We should not fall in the trap of measuring and thinking we are safe. Because it goes to the next trap, the trap of pretension. In the North Sea oil, the Gulf of Mexico oil spillage, listen very carefully to what happened that day.
The tension in every drilling operation is between doing things safely and doing them fast. Time is money, and this job was costing BP $1 million a day. The day of the accident, BP flew several managers to the Deepwater Horizon for a ceremony to congratulate the crew for 7 years without an injury. For 7 years without an injury. 7 years without an injury. For 7 years without an injury.
They were there to congratulate them for 7 years without an injury. Is there any one person in this room who believes they've worked 7 years on that oil rig and nobody ever had a scratch on them? What a total lie. But this is the problem. They pretended to be safe, and the management of BP pretended to believe them. It's a game of pretension. And this is the problem when we define safety as the absence of accidents. And if people don't show you accidents, we get the measurement confirming our illusion. The BP executives got their bonuses that year. You may not know that. The Transocean executives got incredible bonuses that year because they hit all the targets. Despite the fact that 11 of their employees were killed, they still improved 4% on the previous year on the lagging indicators. They paid them their bonuses. How callous is that? Rewards is probably the most powerful thing you can do in an organization to motivate people. But it's the worst thing you can do in safety. The worst thing you can do. I am railing against any reward system in safety that rewards people for not having accidents, because they will not have accidents. They'll pretend not to have them. It's just the reality of life. When we send people into the workplaces and we put these goals, 0 injuries, and we start to go 0 accidents, and we reward safe behavior, the culture in the organization become apprehensive. And then we go into the next level, the so-called cardinal rules, 0 deviance. We punish at-risk behavior, 0 tolerance, and we reward 0 accidents. When we don't have accidents, we reward people for that, not having accidents. And then something starts to happen. There's a split in the safety performance record. It splits into the LTIFR, the lost time injury frequency rate, and the LGIFR, the looking good injury frequency rate. And that's when the organization's culture becomes driven by fear. And risk secrecy presses down in the organization. This risk secrecy allows all good news and distorted news to go through, to reach management. No problems with that. But bad news, any risks, any issues that may disturb the safety record, stays here. And no more tragic was this shown in Piper Alpha when the manager was, after the disaster, challenged. How come did you not know of all these deficiencies we found so readily? His answer was, I knew everything on my rig was okay because I never got a report anything was wrong. Totally delusional. It's a trap of triangular thinking. We think if we manage the small things, the big things will look after itself. If we manage the surface stuff, the visible injury rates and the lagging indicators, and that's what we do, you come out of the harbor, you're the captain of the ship. What do you tell your engine room if the ocean looks like that? Full speed ahead. And we don't know what we don't know. An obsession with small incidents has led in that oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico. You could not walk with a cup of coffee without the lid on. You had to hold the handrails when you go up and down the stairs. Oh, great stuff. But the obsession with that was the cause they didn't see the big ones coming. We should be obsessed with the right things in the organization.